G'day, this is Gay from Gardeners by Trade, back again with another video. And in this video we're talking about what it's like to be a female gardener. I get asked this a lot, what it's like. I think most people refer to the physical side of it, but there's a few other things to it as well, I think, that can come into play. The differences between a female and a male, the physical one being the main one. So don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll get straight into it. So like I said, let's start with the first one. What is it like to be a female gardener from a physical aspect? So there's obviously the struggle of lifting things, carrying things. I think they're the two hardest things. The endurance to me is fairly similar. A female and a male, are fairly on par with those sorts of things, but definitely the strength of it, and lifting above your shoulders is one of the biggest things. So being able to lift heavy things. So if you're required to what is heft? If you're required to lift a heavy bag of cement, soil, potting mix maybe, understandably they all have the weights on them and stuff, and they have lift within your range and how to lift. But manual handling is a big thing now in occupational health and safety, and it's also the onus is on yourself a lot of the time to make sure that you're capable of doing it. So you don't necessarily have to do things that you can't physically do, but there are ways that you can get around things, so leveraging things does help. But when it comes to gardening, some of the things that I find harder, or not harder, just more demanding, and you find that you do get tiring, is hedging, especially when you're hedging above your shoulders. So you might be manual hedging or using a power hedges. The power hedges are obviously heavier, and because you are using them a lot above your shoulders, it's a lot more difficult to do, and you do get tired. So I think if you can break it up, it does help you a lot. Breaking it up will help with the just releasing your muscles a little bit, and and just giving you a little bit of a break, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, you've got if you're doing hedging, generally you'd be hedging something and then raking it up. So you can't just go full bore into hedging something and not cleaning it up after yourself. That would just be ungardener-like. So part of the maintenance of gardening is to clean it up. So yeah, you have to do those sort of things. I think the endurance side, because you may walk for miles and miles and miles. Definitely if you're on a line trimmer. As I've said before, working in parks and gardens, you can walk from one end of the park to the other. Some parks are massive and do take a whole day to be at. So it can be very challenging. I think at one of the places that I did work at, we had to unload a truck. This truck was full of potting soil, more potting mix I suppose, but because it was frozen it was a lot heavier. So putting them on your shoulders when you're younger, it's okay, but you got to think of over time as you get older. So just being mindful of those sort of things, I think when you're younger does help when you get older and you can continue to garden. So I think as a female, obviously the strength part, and the endurance in some of the strength when you're lifting power trimmers or similar. There's a lot more females now becoming gardeners. Once upon a time it was not frowned upon, but you just didn't see many women in trades. So definitely, there's very few women in the construction trades, and then you've got things like plumbing and carpentry, it being a builder, and then you've got your other trades of a mechanic, things like that. You don't get generally a lot of women doing it, but a lot of women can do the gardening, and that's because there's, I think, a varied amount of work that you can do out there. And some of the work does take a bit more detail to attention, and females tend to be better at this. So there was a big push a few years ago with a lot of employment places when they were looking for workers, they changed their shift and they went to looking for, women, so equal opportunity. So whereas, once upon a time in parks and gardens, for example, they would have had, 95% would have been male, they then wanted to hire a lot more females to balance out the equation and to give an all-round better workplace, I suppose, to make the changes that are needed. So introducing more women into it. And women as gardeners, can do just as much as men. So it's not like you can't do it, so they can do it. It may be just a little bit more physically demanding, like I've said before. So you do get a little bit tired, a little bit worn out, but you can still do the same stuff. And then there's the attention to detail side. So women might be more suited to hand weeding than men, but it doesn't mean to say that men won't do hand weeding either. So I don't think many gardeners or professional gardeners like hand weeding. I think that they think that that's more of an unskilled sort of job rather than a qualified gardener's job. So, but the attention to detail that females can give with things like planting, definitely your flowers, your vegetable gardens, a few things like that. They've probably got a little bit more patience and just that attention to detail that helps a little bit. So generally working, if you've got teams and you're working with a male and a female, you can, cover a lot of areas in a garden. So I think it works well. So with the push for more of an equal opportunity, it created more females going to trade school. So to get qualified, generally you went to trade school, and when I went to trade school, we had half of the class were women and half of the other half were obviously male. So the year before when Carol went, she and one other girl were in the class. So, in 1 year there was a lot of changes where, a lot of employers went to, equal opportunity and were looking to hire more women in the workforce. So to be a gardener, you have to have the physical fitness. So whether you be male or female, that doesn't matter. So you obviously have to have the fitness to be able to do it, and the want to do it as well, the want to be outside. Not everybody is suited to working outdoors. Some people prefer working indoors, some people prefer working outdoors. But starting out as a gardener, for a female, you've also got the opportunity, a lot of females then go into things like nursery work or retail sales, or even into supervisor roles or management roles where they're off the tools and can give their body a little bit more of a rest. Particularly if they've come back from having children or had a break from it, all those sorts of things. Being off the tools can help their body a lot more. And lastly, there's the advantage of working outdoors, and you get the attention of the males. So sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Some people get more attention than other people. Some people dress for more attention. So it can be varied. But when you're working, I know this for a fact, when you're working out in the parks and gardens, a lot of people will stop and talk to the females more so than the males. I think they feel more comfortable talking to the females. And to get the public interested in what you're doing is a nice thing. I think, especially when you are working in the parks and gardens areas, the public do appreciate the work that you put into it. They understand that it's, generally not easy work to do. So, they really do appreciate it. And they appreciate, females being in trade jobs. So, I think that that's a good, or most people think it's a great thing that females are out there doing trade, jobs, what would normally be a male-dominated job. So it's thankful that you've got employers now that go out and they hire females to work as gardeners. And then on the flip side of, being noticed by the public, you also get noticed by the opposite sex. So I've had a few date requests and such from men that would be happen to living nearby or see you often in the parks and things like that. So it's a bit of an unusual request, but that's what happens. So Yeah, I suppose it can happen nearly anywhere, in restaurants or anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're a gardener. I don't know. So yeah, so that's some of my thoughts and feelings on what it's like to be a female gardener. Not everyone feels the same, I think. Yeah, most people, I think most females do like gardening because they like the aesthetics of it. So whether they like a formal or informal garden, they like the aesthetics of it. Some will like what it can produce, so that's why they garden. And for other ones, it's, you know, a profession. And Toby wants to play ball again, so we're going to have to wrap it up. Out of the garden. Out of the garden. Come on, take it out. Take it out. Out! Out! Alright. So that's it for us. If you've got any comments or thoughts about it, we'd love to hear about them. Like I said, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, Gardeners by Trade. And thank you for watching. Toby. This is Toby.